As I mentioned, we're not going to be in the book of Mark today. We're going to skip through that, and we're going to talk about a one word. And Sandra's guessed it, time. I picked a great graphic, and we are going to talk about time. The way we understand time, and most of the world understands time, is on a timeline kind of mindset. As a beginning and an end. We time things. Time runs. We lose time. We measure time. But it's all kind of in a linear understanding in our brains. We first learned that as children in elementary school, where you had to finish a worksheet that was a timeline of certain events. That's how we think. There are cultures, however, in the world that don't think like that. There are some cultures in the world that don't have in their language system past tense because they don't think of it in a linear way. Throughout history, there have been cultures, tribes of people, in fact, that if it's not happening now, it's forgotten, and they're only living in the moment. As Westerners, one of the ways our minds and thoughts have been framed is to think of time as a linear line. You all had a date that you were born. Certain events happened in your life that you could place on a timeline. Okay? That Greek word for that is chronos. And it appears in the Bible a number of times in the New Testament. However, when the Bible was translated, the New Testament was translated from Greek to English, there are two Greek words, chronos being one, and there's another one, but they're both translated generally into one English word, time. Chronos, and then kairos. Kairos is a different understanding of time. It is not linear, okay? Kairos is a moment or an opportunity. And what I want us to think about today are kairos moments with this understanding. There are times we're going through life on a chronos timeline. But God is outside of time. God created time. He's bigger than time. The Bible says that 1,000 years is like a day with God. So He is not limited by time. He's not constrained by time. He made it. He constructed it. Okay? But on our chronos timeline of our lives, there are kairos moments where God steps in to time. Obviously, the most amazing way He did that, He became one of us and experienced time as Jesus. Jesus was born. He had a human beginning. Jesus died on a cross, and He had a human end of His earthly life. God, who is outside of time, bigger than time, stepped into time. And He continues to do that. It is not a straight linear moment. And here's how I would like to picture it. Some of you who have done a lot of driving, maybe in urban areas, will be going down a 4-lane, 6-lane interstate. And you come up on a junction, an intersection of another interstate. And you have driven in what's called a clover leaf. Okay? So you exit and you circle around to go the other way. I don't know if you've ever done this or not, but it's possible to get in a clover leaf and take this one, and then take this one, and then take this one, and then take this one, and you could just do this all day if you wanted to. And some of you probably getting not sure where to turn, you did that, okay? That's what happens in time when God breaks in. He provides a kairos moment where we exit the normal activity of life. And it may be for a minute or two. It may only be a few seconds where God is speaking to you, okay? And then we decide, are we going to stay on the Chronos freeway, or are we going to listen to directions? Your Garmin is saying, turn here. Sometimes God speaks into our Chronos life. When he does that, do you hear his voice? In John chapter 10, Jesus is the good shepherd, and he says, my sheep know my voice, and they follow me. The stranger, they don't know his voice, and so they don't follow him. When you hear or have an impression or a leading or just a knowing that I should do this, we want to be available to God for a kairos moment. Sometimes it's an hour of prayer. The old hymn says, sweet hour of prayer. Sometimes it's a season of our life. It could be days, weeks, or months that God has us in a kairos season where he's teaching and leading, maybe healing, maybe calling us out of the Chronos freeway of our life into his presence, into his beauty and his truth. Some of you have been called out of the hustle and bustle of life, the pain of life, into a moment of kairos healing and hope. So when it happens, we don't want to miss it. God steps in, and it's different. Let me give you an example. 2 examples. 2 weeks ago Sunday, I was meeting with my Sunday night group. It's 20-something guys, college-age guys, all out of high school. We did it. We do our yucking it up. We yuck it up for a while. We eat pizza or whatever. We finally get to the Bible. We do a little Bible thing. We learn. We talk. We hold each other accountable. We share. We've learned to trust each other. But we always close in prayer. On this evening, I put on the whiteboard each guy's name. There's 7 or 8 guys there that night, maybe 10. I don't think that many. And we went through the list. What could we pray for you about? And each of them would share a struggle, a pain, a joy, a confusion, a fear, a doubt, a sin. So we had a list. And before we started to pray, one of the guys says, who are those other names? Because on the left side of the whiteboard, there were a group of 13 names. That's the Monday night boys. Those are all high school boys. I said, who are those guys? I said, well, they're the high school. They knew some of them, but they didn't recognize all their names. And then somebody said, maybe we can kind of get outside of ourselves. Maybe we should pray for somebody else instead of always praying for our own troubles, fears, struggles, doubts, pains. And it was as if God entered the room. And so he did. After me kind of going down the list, because they didn't know these guys, tell us about these guys. Who are they? What do they do? Are they in sports? Or why do they come? Or went down the list. Each of the older guys took at least one guy. Some of them took 2. And we began to pray. And then those tough guys. And I wouldn't want to take on any of them. I'm old. I'm fat. I'm slow. I'm a lover, not a fighter. When the first one was praying for a guy that he knew, but he started to cry, it was a Kairos moment. And then the next one. They prayed for guys that they have beef with, they'd had conflict with, they'd had trouble with maybe in high school. Maybe it was over a girl. Maybe it was over a sports season. They forgave these guys. We prayed for an hour, and it seemed like 10 minutes. That's Kairos. We got done, and we began to talk about, wow, what was that? What just happened? At this point, I didn't know what to call that. I didn't know this. We just knew God was there. And before the night was over, we had made a plan for those boys to come back the next night on Monday night, because they wanted to pray for them in person. Now, I knew that if I told the high school boys, the college guys were going to meet with them, half of them would not show. So I didn't tell them. I met with them, our normal time. 12 of 13 were there. I said, we're going to do something different tonight. We're going to go through this real quick. I need you to focus. Okay? They did. I said, now, I need you to follow me. So we got up and we walked across the parking lot to Sozo 1, where the other boys were waiting. And we all sat down around the table, and we became very honest. There were guys who hated each other in that room. There were guys that, because of certain things that had happened, have not spoken to each other. There were a couple that used to be best friends, and things happened. And they began to talk about all those things in the most brutal and honest way. But when the first one said, I can't hold that against you anymore. You're my brother. I love you. I forgive you. It was a Kairos moment again. We talked some more. In fact, we challenged some of those guys, and it really primarily was not me. And when the call was given, the challenge was given for those guys, anybody in the room, to stand up if you have ever felt hopeless or depressed, or even had thoughts of ending your own life. I don't want to explain how many young men stood up, but it was a Kairos moment. It was a moment of healing, of brutal honesty. It was a moment of compassion. It was a room of tender warriors who had gotten off the freeway of a Chronos life and taken a momentary exit into the presence of God in Kairos. So I don't want to miss Kairos moments. The last one happened last night about 9 o'clock. The band was about halfway through their prayer and worship set with our high schoolers. And I thought, I don't want my church to miss this. There's a Kairos moment coming, and I can stay on the freeway and miss it, or we can step into it. So that's why we're worshiping today. One final story, and we'll go through 5 points, and then we're going to close with more worship. About 10 years ago, an elderly lady came into my insurance office. She had a purse. She had a handful of papers. She asked to see me. Sat down at my desk, started opening envelopes, and said, my car insurance is due and I need to pay it. I'm like, oh, well, we can help you with that. I've never done it. I don't know how to do it. She had her checkbook out. I said, well, it's right here. Yeah, I can help you. Let's do this real quick. Her husband had died 2 or 3 months earlier. And for 50-some years, she'd never written in a check for car insurance. He always took care of that. She didn't have to worry about that. But now she did. So we did the work of the envelope and the check and writing it out and all that. And then she said, my house is really big and empty and quiet. It's lonely. Some of you know that feeling. And I heard, I'm on the Kronos freeway, and I heard, not with my ears, but with my heart, I heard this. Pray with her. And my response was, no, this is an office. There are people here. I'm not going to pray with her. And I heard it again. Pray with her. No. Gabe is right in there. Ethan, there's another customer at the counter. No, she didn't ask me to pray for her. She asked me to pray with her. Pray with her. But I was too afraid. And I didn't. And I went right on with my life. And I missed, I'm certain of it, a Kairos moment. If God is real, and if He is what you say He is, and what you hope He is, and what you sing that He is, we don't want to miss Him. But we do. So as we close, I want to go through this real quick. I did a study of every time the word Kairos appears in the New Testament. 10 times in Matthew, 5 in Mark, 12 in Luke, 3 in John, 9 in Acts, 6 in Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, 5 more times. The Pauline letters, 7, 8 to 12, 13, 14, 16 more times. 4 times in Hebrews. 1 Peter 4 times, in Revelation 5 times. I'll post these. We don't have time to go through them all. It appears everywhere in the New Testament. Kairos moments are everywhere. Okay? There's one in Galatians where Paul's writing and he uses the word 2 times in 2 verses. Kairos moments. Galatians chapter 6. There's another one in 1 Thessalonians. He's writing to them about the end time, the final day. And he says, about the times and dates, Paul uses both words here. He contrasts them. Okay? So, I don't want to miss them. The first thing we do is observe. When you get in a moment, you will have to observe what's going on. Ask yourself, what's going on? I'm sitting at my desk. Pray with her. I needed to observe what's going on. Second, reflect. What might God be doing? All kinds of ways this happens. Music, conversation, opportunities with strangers, guy at a gas station. You know, you observe and you reflect. What are you doing? What are you calling me to do? 3, discuss it, if you have time, with a trusted friend. Here's what happened. Here's what I thought. What do you think of that? Is that biblical? Is that true? Or is this just me? Is it just my emotions? Trust someone. That's what happened on that Sunday night and that Monday night. Number 4, plan. How will you respond? Many times, not always, but many times when you exit the freeway of Kronos and get into the Kairos moment, God's calling you to do something. He's calling you to do something. What is it you want me to do? How should I respond? He's calling you to change. If that's the case, make yourself accountable to someone. That trusted friend. You'll follow up. How did it go? What happened? What was the resolution? What did you do? You become accountable to someone. And last, do it. As God makes it clear, do it. The first part of the chronos is, what is God saying? And the second part, what am I doing about it? Okay? Now, I didn't know any of this 2 weeks ago. But my pastor's group on Thursday, I said, let me tell you what happened 2 days ago. And Rod Casey said, Kairos. And I said, I beg your pardon? Kairos. That's a Kairos. And so I've been studying for 2 weeks that Greek word. This picture and diagram and those 6 points are not mine. I'm not that smart. A pastor by the name of Walter Quick came up with that. I have some copies of this if you want to take one and get the details of it. But the main point is, we are allotted time. Some of that time is quantifiable and it's measurable. And it's the time, the concept that you have to get the to-do list done during the day. Certain things have to happen by certain deadlines. That's chronos. We live in it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how it goes. Unless we're so wrapped up in our chronos, our plans, our lists, our calendars, our events. We have crammed it so full and it is so tight that God trying to break in for a Kairos moment, we miss it. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. That's my encouragement today. That's what I was standing and sitting over here last night and thought, I don't want my church to miss this. Thus, the music.